In today's video, I am going to explain anatomy and function of adductor muscles. There are various adductor muscles in lower extremity, so I want to focus on three muscles today. First one is adductor brevis, next one is adductor longus, and the last one is adductor magnus. Let's get started from adductor brevis. This is it. Brevis means short. I'm gonna explain adductor longus for next part. So brevis is short adductor. Okay, where is origin of adductor brevis? That's here. This is inferior ramus of pubis. Inferior ramus, it's about here. This is origin. Where is insertion? Insertion is backside of femur. You don't see where that is. So please visualize this dot line indicates insertion. This is linea aspera. Linea aspera, that is posterior surface of femur. This is origin, inferior ramus. Insertion is linea aspera. What is function of this muscle? There are few functions. The main function is, of course, what? That's adduction. That is why this muscle is adductor brevis. That makes sense. By the way, adduction is this movement. You open up leg first, then you close leg. This is adduction. Okay, what is other functions? Next one is hip flexion. Plus, this muscle also does extension. That sounds weird. This muscle can do completely opposite movement. I will explain about flexion and extension later. Well, this is anatomy of adductor brevis, origin, insertion, and function. Let's go to next muscle. Next muscle is adductor longus. Adductor longus, this is the muscle. This is long muscle. That's longer than adductor brevis, don't you think? This is adductor brevis, short muscle. And this is adductor longus, long muscle. That makes sense. Where's origin? Origin is right here. It's close to adductor brevis, but it's slightly different location. This part is superior ramus. Adductor brevis was inferior ramus. Adductor longus is superior ramus. It's close but slightly different location. Okay, where is insertion? Insertion is same as adductor brevis. That's on posterior part. This is linea aspera. Okay, this is origin and insertion. What is main function? Of course, adduction. Adduction. Plus, same like adductor brevis, adductor longus can also do flexion and extension. I will talk about flexion and extension later with adductor brevis. Trust me, I will talk about that later. This is adductor longus. So let's go to the last one. Last one is adductor magnus. Magnus means big. Look at that. It's very big muscle, right? Adductor magnus. Origin and insertion are also big. That's big muscle. Where's origin? Origin is very, very wide. There are three places. First place is inferior ramus. You see that, right? You saw that inferior ramus for adductor brevis. Next part is ischiopubic ramus. It's basically the place between pubis and the ischium, about here, the yellow part. Next one is ischial tuberosity. Ischial tuberosity is this part. This is called as sit bone, this big bony bump. This is ischial tuberosity. See, adductor magnus, very wide muscle. It's about here. Insertion is also wide. This is origin and insertion. What is main function? Of course, adduction. Adduction plus same like adductor brevis, adductor longus can also do flexion and extension. I will talk about flexion and extension later. This is adductor magnus, very wide. One part is, you already saw that is linear aspera. Plus, the fiber goes to close to knee joint. This is adductor tubercle. Adductor tubercle. Most of fiber goes to linear aspera, and part of fiber goes to adductor tubercle. This part is very close to the knee joint. So when adductor gets tight, this tightness may create dysfunction for knee joint. Adductor magnus, very, very important. Well, these are origin and insertion. Let's talk about function. Main function is, of course, adduction. Adduction plus that can do extension. These two functions are what you see on anatomy book. Actually, adductor magnus can do rotational movement. However, here's the thing. Depends on anatomy books, depends on anatomy information. What they say is different. Some books say that does external rotation. Some anatomy info says internal rotation. I believe adductor magnus can do rotational movement, but I don't have concrete opinion about that. Maybe that does external rotation, maybe that does internal rotation. So let me put question mark for rotational movement. So main function is adduction, of course, plus extension. External rotation, internal rotation, questionable. This is about adductor magnus. This is very, very big, very important muscle. Plus, do you remember I said I was going to talk about flexion and extension for adductor brevis and longus. Here it is. This is profile view. Both adductor brevis and longus does flexion until about 70 degrees of flexion. So up to 70 degrees, both adductor brevis and longus does flexion. And hip flexion goes above 80 degrees. Now these two muscles does extension. This is very, very interesting. So up to 70 degrees, adductor brevis and longus do flexion. If hip goes above 80 degrees, maybe your hip position is about 100 degrees. Now adductor brevis and longus act as hip extensor. I believe this is very important, very interesting. So if you have tight adductors, maybe your hip flexion, hip extension may be aggravated. Of course, tight adductors inhibit hip abduction, that is leg split movement, plus tightness of adductor also affects for tight extension, tight flexion. I think adductors are quite important muscle for hip movement. Alright, in today's video, I explained 3 adductor muscles. Adductor brevis, short one, adductor longus, long one, then adductor magnus, big muscle. I hope today's anatomy helps for your career. If you liked today's video, please hit the like button, comment and subscribe. See you next video.